Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at, well, more than just a legendary hip-hop career. We're diving into the really painful financial story that followed. We're talking about the long, very personal, and very public fight over the estate of Christopher Rios, better known as Big Pun.
Yeah, big pun. His impact was huge. I mean, the first Latino rapper to go platinum with Capital Punishment back in '98. Just incredible.
Incredible, but tragically short. His death in February 2000 was a shock, and that moment, it basically kicked off one of the most tangled financial messes in hip-hop.
Absolutely. It pitted his family, his widow, Liza Rios, their son, Chris Rivers, against someone who was, supposed to be his closest ally, his mentor, his friend, Fat Joe.
Joseph Cartagena, yeah.
And the heart of it all is money. We're talking millions in royalties that allegedly just vanished.
So today, our mission really is to get past the public arguments, the Instagram stuff, and look at the actual court documents.
Exactly. We've got expert testimony, legal filings. We want to see how the facts line up against what's been said publicly, especially Fat Joe's denials over the years.
And what does this whole mess tell us about how the system sometimes fails artist families?
That's the bigger question, yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack it. Where do we start? The relationship after Pun died, right? What was the deal supposed to be?
Well, according to Liza Rios, after Pun passed in 2000, there was this understanding, a verbal agreement, she says, with Fat Joe.
Makes sense, given how close they were, Terror Squad and all that.
Right. The idea was, okay, Pun's music is still making money, a lot of money, from publishing, sales, everything, and they'd split that revenue.
Seems straightforward enough.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And this is where the timeline just becomes kind of staggering. According to the lawsuit Liza Rios later filed, those payments, they didn't just trickle down.
They stopped completely.
Completely stopped in 2005.
Wait, 2005. So from 2005 until they filed the lawsuit, how long is that?
That's the shocking part. They allege it was an 11-year gap. 11 years with basically nothing coming in from the catalog.
11 years. For the family of a platinum artist whose music is still everywhere, you still hear Big Pun all the time.
Think about that. The music's generating revenue, but the family claims they saw none of it for over a decade. The hardship there, financially, emotionally, that's really the core of this tragedy.
You can only imagine. It must have taken immense pressure for them to finally say, okay, we have to sue.
Definitely. And Pun's son, Chris Rivers, he's been very vocal supporting his mom. He's talked about how tough those years were, while, others seem to be profiting from his dad's work.
So the private approach clearly wasn't working for over a decade. How did they finally bring this into the open?
They went federal. In 2014, Liza Rios filed a lawsuit, Southern District of New York.
And she wasn't just going after Fat Joe.
No, the suit targeted Joe, but also the music publisher, John Jellybean Benitez, and his company, Jelly's Jams. They were looking for over $1 million in those unpaid royalties.
Okay, so the lawsuit lands. What was Fat Joe's immediate reaction? Publicly, he was denying everything, right?
Oh, completely. Total denial.
Ah.
His legal team filed papers in November 2014 basically saying, this is baseless, dismiss it. We don't owe anything.
But that's where things often shift in these cases, isn't it? When an independent expert comes in.
Exactly. That denial strategy hit a major roadblock thanks to a music royalty expert named Ali Adawiya.
Adawiya, I've heard that name. He's worked on some big estate cases.
Huge ones. Notorious B.I.G.'s estate share. I mean, this guy knows his stuff. His involvement was, frankly, a game changer.
So how did Adawiya cut through the noise? If the defense is saying we owe nothing, how do you prove otherwise? What did he find?
It wasn't just one thing. It was a deep dive, a forensic audit of everything. Publishing money, master recording revenue, the statements going back and forth between the labels, the publishers, Joe's companies like Terror Squad, all of it.
And the conclusion?
Devastating for the defense. Adawiya determined, very clearly, that Big Pun's estate had been underpaid, and not by a small amount.
How much were we talking?
The figure in his report was at least $2,076,093.
Wow. Over $2 million, just documented underpayment.
Exactly. And that number, coming from a respected independent expert, it just completely validated what Liza Rios had been saying for years about the missing money. It wasn't just a grievance anymore. It was a documented multi-million-dollar liability.
And who did the reports say was responsible for that shortfall? Was it all on Fat Joe?
No, and this is key. Adawiya's findings pointed fingers at multiple parties. The report specifically implicated Loud Records, which is now part of Sony Music, and Fat Joe in these Let's call them discrepancies.
So a systemic breakdown. It wasn't just one person potentially pocketing money. It was the whole structure, the label, the partner.
It suggests a breakdown across that whole
Yeah.
ecosystem. Yeah, the way the money flowed or didn't flow through the label and the partnership. Once that $2 million figure was on the table, officially, the whole dynamic shifted. The defendants couldn't just dismiss it anymore.
Makes sense. So with that kind of evidence, a settlement seems almost inevitable despite the initial denials.
And that's what happened. By June 2016, the case was settled out of court.
Confidential terms, I assume?
Standard practice, yeah. The exact amount isn't public.
But that, we can infer things, right?
Yeah.
Liza Rios' lawyer came out saying they were pleased and called the settlement fair. You don't usually call a settlement fair if you were claiming over $2 million was missing and you settled for like 50 grand.
Exactly. The implication is strong. That fair settlement likely reflected or even exceeded that $2 million finding from the expert. It completely undercuts the initial claim that the lawsuit had no merit.
It really highlights the contrast, doesn't it, between the public statements and what happened legally.
Stark contrast. Let's just lay it out. Fat Joe's public claim, I don't owe any money.
Court fact, he's a defendant in a case settled for likely millions, right after an expert details a $2 million plus underpayment linked to his operations.
Right. Then there's the claim, I helped the family financially after Pun died.
Court fact, the core of the lawsuit, which led to that settlement, was an alleged 11-year gap where the family received no money from the catalog revenue. The lawsuit itself suggests that help, if any, wasn't coming from the royalties they felt entitled to.
And what's also really telling, neither Fat Joe nor Jellybean Benitez showed up for the final settlement hearing.
They didn't attend, even when settling a multi-million-dollar case.
Nope. Which, combined with the need to settle despite denying everything initially, it strongly suggests the evidence against them was just overwhelming, probably indefensible if it went to trial.
So, settle quietly, avoid a public trial.
It's a common playbook in the industry, unfortunately. Deny, deny, deny publicly, but when the numbers are laid bare by an expert, make it go away confidentially.
Okay, so the legal case wrapped in 2016. Money changed hands, presumably a significant amount, but the story didn't end there, did it?
Not even close. And that tells you something important about these kinds of settlements. The money didn't fix the underlying issues or the feelings
The
involved.
public conflict just kept going.
Oh, yeah. It flared up again significantly in 2021, lots of heated stuff on social media. And even as recently as December 2024, Liza Rios reportedly walked out of an interview when asked about Fat Joe.
Still citing that $2 million figure.
She keeps bringing up the number found in the court documents, yeah. Around $2.3 million, she often says publicly. It shows the wound is still very much open for her. The settlement didn't bring closure.
And this ongoing animosity, it has real-world consequences beyond just feelings, right?
Huge consequences. Think about Pun's son, Chris Rivers. He's a talented rapper himself. This feud has basically made any professional collaboration or even relationship with Fat Joe impossible.
And it overshadows honoring Pun's legacy, too, like the street renaming ceremony.
Exactly. Fat Joe wasn't there, and he publicly stated it was because of the ongoing tensions with the family. It casts a shadow over moments that should be about celebrating Pun.
So stepping back, what's the bigger lesson here? What does this case tell us about the industry?
I think it's a really painful example of how vulnerable artists' families can be. How does an 11-year gap in payments from a platinum catalog even happen?
Good question.
It happens because the system is incredibly complex. Publishing rights, master rights, different corporate entities. It's almost impossible for a family, especially one grieving and maybe not deeply versed in the industry, to effectively track all that money.
They wouldn't necessarily have the resources right away to hire forensic accountants. The high-powered lawyers needed to audit everything coming from a major label like Sony or partner companies.
Precisely. Liza Rios didn't have those resources initially. It highlights how the complexity itself can be exploited, intentionally or not. Partners, labels, they can benefit from that lack of oversight on the estate side, even while the music keeps making money. It takes years and a lot of money, often lawyers working on contingency, just to figure out what was supposed to be paid.
So the takeaway isn't necessarily about, like, outright theft from day one, but maybe a systemic failure of accounting and accountability that went unchecked for years.
That seems to be the picture painted by the evidence. A failure that was only corrected when faced with undeniable proof in federal court.
And that brings us back to the settlement.
Right. The legal system provided a financial fix, eventually. But the fact that the conflict is still going on tells you that money alone wasn't enough. True resolution seems to require more. It needs transparency, maybe some real accountability, to actually honor what Big Pun contributed.
Which leaves us with a pretty challenging thought, doesn't it?
I think so. In an industry that makes so much money from catalogs, how effective are these confidential settlements, really? Do they actually fix the systemic problems? Or do they just sweep them under the rug, leaving families feeling unheard and legacies kind of tarnished by the fight, even years later?
Something definitely worth thinking about. How do we ensure fairness and transparency for artists' legacies when the primary voice is gone?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it?
It certainly is. Thanks for walking us through this deep dive,
You got it.
and thank you for joining us.